Isn't the point, though, as we heard at the end, that at the moment the US administration is in danger of punishing a state without any evidence whatsoever of nuclear military activity?
Well, that's not quite right. That what the national intelligence estimate said the Iranians had closed down their military nuclear weapons development program, but it also acknowledged that Iran continued to enrich uranium that could be used in this way. And I think one of the things that is a real flaw in the NIE, and one of the things that has raised a lot of concern throughout the world in Europe, has been that it seems a little bit gullible of the U.S. intelligence communities to take the Iranian claims at face value about what they want this uranium for.
Well, we can believe the American intelligence, or we can believe the people who told us the lies about Iraq. I mean, how many wars are we going to sleepwalk into? How many wars are we going to allow these crazed neocons, who are, by the way, on the payroll of the Zionist lobby in the United States? He's talking about paying the own Mr. Galloway,
I really wouldn't use the word payroll if I were you.
This man is a notorious bagman for the Zionist lobby.
George Galloway, this is big rhetoric, but if you come back to those specific concerns, for example, that actually some of that the intelligence report was quite gullible.
Well, I mean, who are we to say the United States intelligence services are gullible? Not only is there no evidence that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon, the American intelligence has told us that the evidence is that they have abandoned it. Now, you could go on to discuss why Israel is allowed to have nuclear weapons, but Iran is not. But to propose war, which is what Bush is in the region for, war against a country that his own intelligence service says doesn't have nuclear weapons, in the service of a country which has hundreds of nuclear weapons, illegally held, undeclared, and subject to no international regulation.
David? Yeah, David, from George Galloway.
As I say, if I were Mr. Galloway, I really wouldn't use the word payroll, because on this side of the Atlantic we do have the First Amendment and people can respond accordingly. But
you're welcome anytime.
Actually, there is actually very little possibility of a U.S.-Iranian conflict, and that has been subsiding. And one of the things that is really a fascinating question about the direction of the U.S.-Iran relationship is that since the publication of the NIE, there have been a lot of voices in the United States, including some of those so-called crazed neocons, including myself, who have said the United States should be proposing a more open relationship with Iran, should be proposing now to have direct contacts, precisely in the knowledge that the real impediment to a closer relationship is the Iranians themselves. They profit from this conflict. And when it was only just recently that the head of the Iranian state, the real head of the Iranian state, said that he would not accept any kind of direct connection with the United States. It's important for the United States not to look like the intransigent party here.
David,
it's Iran that requires this conflict.
In that case, if that is what this is all about, why would President Bush, on his first trip to Israel, on the first day of a Middle East peace process visit, kick off by pointing the finger at Iran and calling it a threat in the past, a threat in the present, and a threat in the future? Why is that conciliatory?
They had just buzzed American warships. I mean, one of the things that is a real mystery about Iranian behavior, and you saw this with your own Royal Navy, is at any moment when things look like there might be a promising turn to the Iranian-Western relationship, there is an attack, some kind of violation of international law, some kind of kidnapping has happened to the British, some kind of buzzing of American warships has happened recently in the Gulf that makes it impossible. And even if it's true that we have less to worry about from an Iranian nuclear program than we thought, it doesn't mean there's nothing else to worry about. There's a lot else to worry about.
I think there's a point of agreement here. I think that there's very little chance of a United States attack on Iran. George Bush has 300 days to go. The neocons are on their way out. They're lame ducks. But there's every possibility of an Israeli attack on Iran. And I suspect that's what's being discussed in Tel Aviv this evening. George Bush and the Israeli government, which itself has hundreds of nuclear weapons, are planning an attack on a country that doesn't have nuclear weapons. That's what's really going on in Tel Aviv, if you ask me.
According to the official account, these men got on board 3 tube trains carrying homemade explosives in rucksacks and blew themselves up, killing 39 innocent people and injuring many more. The next key contention of the conspiracy theory is that the bombs were actually planted underneath the carriages by government agents. Bruce Lait is a survivor of the attacks who thought he saw evidence of a bomb underneath the train. On the morning of 7/7, Bruce was on his way to a ballroom dancing audition. At Liverpool Street, he got on a Circle Line train heading towards Aldgate.
I just got on the train, sat down reading the newspaper about us getting the Olympics in 2012, and I've had quite a good feeling about everything. Sitting on the train, going to my audition. Must have been not much longer than 30 seconds. All of a sudden, it didn't feel like I was on the train anymore. Something was very, very different. It was very strange. I had this very heavy feel to it, this very heavy kind of not of this world feel to it.
According to the official account, Shehzad Tanweer had detonated a bomb, killing himself and 7 others. In the aftermath, something caught Bruce's eye.
As I was getting off the train, I noticed that there was a hole, and the hole was as if there was a bomb or the explosion had burst up through the floor of the train, and that was just about there.
Bruce doesn't know whether he actually saw evidence the bomb was underneath the carriage. And not in Tanweer's rucksack, as the authorities said. Across London, at Edgware Road Underground Station, there were other suggestions from survivors of a hole underneath the carriage. At 8:50, a Circle Line train had been devastated by an explosion just outside the station. Some of those on board were telling a Guardian journalist of how the explosion came from beneath the train.
Where we believe there was an explosion this morning under the carriage of a train, and some passengers described how the tiles, the covers on the floor of the train suddenly flew up, raised up, and
Nearly 2.5 years after 7/7, Bruce got a mysterious package in the post.
Why do you think you were sent the DVD?
To open up a can of worms in my mind.
It was a copy of the internet film 7/7 Ripple Effect.
I don't really know who it was sent by, but there was some foreign-sounding name in the credits at the end of this DVD.
A message from Muad'Dib about the 7th of July 2000. Look at the facts.
7/7 Ripple Effect draws on one interview Bruce gave a few days after the attacks, where he mentioned a hole in the carriage floor. It was published in his local paper, but it wasn't missed by Muad'Dib.
Pre-planted explosives. Witnesses of the tube train explosions state that the floors of the trains blew upwards from underneath, not downwards, as would be the case with explosives inside the trains.
Seven Ripple Effect claims the 4 men blamed for the bombings were patsies. They were tricked into travelling to London with rucksacks on 7/7. They were caught on CCTV to incriminate them. The video claims the authorities then set off pre-planted explosives on the tubes and bus and framed the 4 men.
That's when I started asking the questions. What did happen? If what the Ripple Effect says is true, then we should know about it, and it should be looked into in a massive way, because, like I say, it basically is saying that somebody is to blame other than those suicide bombers. Who is it?